Hey folks, how's everybody doing? Matt Ryder here. It is National Poetry Month 2020, day 24. I'm going to read a couple poems from poets for you today. And yes, I'm wearing a hat because I had a bad hair day. Um, I'm going to start with an elegy. My students right now are working on elegies for the creative writing class, and I think a lot of them are worried about coming off sounding cheesy and trite, um, and of course they should worry about that. But and I want them to realize that sometimes the subject of the elegy might even be buried within the elegy. You might not always see the 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 subject as clear as possible. So the first poem I'm going to read by a poet by the name of James Schuyler, who was an amazing poet within the New York School of Poets, whom you hear me reading regularly. And this is an elegy for Frank O'Hara, who was another poet that I read earlier, and he passed in Fire Island. But this is a poem about it's titled "Buried at Springs," which is where the town in Long Island, I believe, where Frank O'Hara is buried, and also I believe Jackson Pollock is buried there as well, not far from um, Frank O'Hara, I believe. Could be wrong. It's been a while since I read that, but but nevertheless. So I'm going to read a couple poems from James Schuyler to you today. So enjoy. Buried at Springs. There is a hornet in the room, and one of us will have to go out the window into the late August mid-afternoon sun. I won. There is a certain challenge in being humane to hornets, but not much. A launch draws 2 lines of wake behind it on the bay like a delta with a melted base. Sandy billows, or they look, of feathery ripe heads of grass, an acid yellow kind of goldenrod glowing or glowering in the shade. Rocks with rags of shadows, washed dust clouts that will never bleach. It is not like this at all. The rapid running, the lapping water, a hollow knock of someone's shipping oars. It is 11 years since Frank sat at his desk and saw and heard it all. The incessant water, the immutable crickets, only not the same. New needles on the spruce, new seaweed on the low tide rocks, other grass and other water, even the great gold lichen on a granite boulder, even the boulder quite literally is not the same. That part, obviously, his name is mentioned in there, but the reference is still, I think, brief. 2. A day subtle and suppressed in mounds of juniper enfolding scratchy pockets of shadow, while bigness, rocks, trees, a stump, stands shadowless in an overcast of ripe grass. There is nothing but shade, like the boggy depths and the stand of spruce, its resonance just the thin scream of mosquitoes ascending. Boats are light Boats are light lumps on the bay, stretching past errand islands to ocean and the terrible tumble, and London, rain persisting, and Paris, changing to rain, delicate day, setting the bright of a young spruce against the cold of an old one hung with unripe cones, each exuding at its tip gum, pungent, clear as a tear, a day tarnished and fractured as the quartz in rocks, and of a dulled, distant point, a day like a gull passing with a slow flapping of wings in a kind of lope, without breeze enough to shake loose the last of the fireweed flowers, a faintly clammy day, like wet silk stained by one dead branch, the harsh russet of dried blood. Frank O'Hara. This little one's a salute to him as well. It's called Salute. Past is past, and if one remembers what one meant to do and never did, is it not enough thought to do enough? Like the gathering of one of each, I planned to gather one of each clover, daisy, paintbrush that grew in that field. The cabin stood in and studied them one afternoon before they wilted. Past is past. I salute the various field. There's like little beautiful nature poems hidden, well, not hidden, but inside these wonderful little love poems of his. Joint. Oh, and it's Colin Help's birthday today, so happy birthday, Colin Help, Professor Colin Help, Elizabethtown College, Pennsylvania. Anyway, joint. Veal and mushrooms, wine and pungent start again. Veal and mushrooms, wine, a too pungent salad, like eating anesthetic. I do not believe in the legends of food. I believe in the food. It is not what carrots are like, it is the carrots. The Wildwood aisle in church has chapels of mussels, and carrots under arches, and breasty beets with dirt in their hair are lit by strings of lemons and by fat votive candles in stubby glasses, smoke and shine of leaves and glass. I think we rich should get down on our knees and thank God we have money. How the seafood smells and eels, how they taste fried and lie in their tank like striated mussels. Burlap bags of rice that try to stand, not kneel, sit open mouth and spill splendor in grains between cobbles. These sacks will go empty, folded like clothes, to the country, and come back in cartloads of frisky cabbage and of tomatoes red and gold. Wine runs in gutters, sour and sweet, sour as sweat, sweet as melons, holding these seeds like thoughts, with seeds in their flesh like sensations. Lucky who have to eat and drink such a stimulating coffee, slower than water, that coats the cup if good and strong. Sorry, started losing breath on that one. Need a drink. You know what? That reminds me of Philadelphia. I'm not sure why, but there you go. Happy birthday, Colin. The last poem I'll read of Mr. Schuyler's is the short little one here. Oh, Blue. This one goes out to New York. Or should I read this one? No, we'll go with this. Blue. Yeah, taking up a lot of time. Blue for Yvonne Jacquette. Beautiful New York sky, harder so much than soft walls you see here, round its shadowy lamp, lighted plaster, smoothed by a hand, wielded trowel, and roller painted by hand, Puerto Rican, blue pressed tin ceiling sky, up into and on which a white cup, more of a mug, falls upward and crack splits into the two glazed clay clouds. James Schuyler, from the collected James Schuyler. Look how comfortable he looks. All right. And then I'm going to read another poem because we're in the S's. I forgot to mention that. We've been doing an alphabetical thing and stuff like that. And going through the alphabet, or it's really not the alphabet, but it's really just going through what's on my shelf, and a lot of them aren't alphabetical. But I would be remiss if I did not include Wallace Stevens in my reading. And I was originally going to do The Man with the Blue Guitar, or 13 Ways of Looking at a Blackbird, because we're going to be doing serial poems soon, and my students are going to learn about those soon. But I was just flipping through, kind of revisiting books that you haven't checked out in a while, and I'm flipping through this one, and for those of you who don't know me that well, I've been teaching in Jersey City since 2003, so almost 17, 18 years now, and I've been living here for 10 years, but I really haven't, I knew there's poems written in Jersey and stuff, but I really haven't run into that many poems about Jersey City. So today I ran into a poem called Loneliness in Jersey City, which I'm sure those of you right now in Jersey City, many of you are feeling. So I'm going to read this poem for you. It's Wallace Stevens' poem, a wonderful poem by Wallace Stevens. And this is going to be the last poem for the night. Thank you for listening today once again. Month's almost over, but the quarantine is not. The stay-at-home orders are still in place, and you should follow that advice. And no drinking of bleach, please. Loneliness in Jersey City. And this one kind of reminds me of Kate Hester, too. You'll see why in a second. What's up, Kate? All right. Loneliness in Jersey City. The deer and the dachshund are one. Well, the gods grow out of the weather. The people grow out of the weather. The gods grow out of the people. Encore, 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 la dieu. The distance between the dark steeple and cobble 10,003 is more than a 7-foot inchworm could measure by moonlight in June. Kiss cats, for the deer and the dachshund are one. My window is 29.3, and plenty of window for me. The steeples are empty, and so are the people. There's nothing whatever to see, except Polacks that pass in their motors and play concertinas all night. They think that things are all right, since the deer and the dachshund are one. I feel like it's written in this neighborhood somewhere. We have a Polish church over here, and the address says, what was the address? 2093. We're at, yeah, so it's like, I feel like it's in the neighborhood here. Anyway, that's poem about Jersey City. One more poem, because I saw it there and I read it many years back, and I'm like, I used to love this poem, and maybe this has something to do with where we're at in the world right now. The poem of our climate. 1. Clear water in a brilliant bowl, pink and white carnations, the light in the room more like snowy air reflecting snow. The newly fallen snow at the end of winter when afternoons return. Pink and white carnations, one desires so much more than that. The day itself is simplified, a bowl of white, cold, a cold porcelain, low and round, with nothing more than carnations there. 2. Say even that this complete simplicity stripped one of all one's torments, concealed the evilly compounded, vital eye, and made it fresh in a world of white. A world of clear water, brilliant edged, still one would want more, one would need more than a world of white and snowy scents. 3. There would remain there would still remain the never-resting mind, so that one would want to escape, come back to what had been so long composed. The imperfect is our paradise. Note that in this bitterness, delight, since the imperfect is so hot in us, lies flawed words and stubborn sounds. Sounds like exactly what he was talking about as I was reading this poem, the stubborn sounds. Stay safe, folks. Tell somebody you love them. Have a wonderful evening. It's Friday night. Give somebody a hug and a kiss if you can, if you're allowed to. And if not, give yourself a hug and a kiss. Take care, folks.